Good morning, everybody. Welcome for our lesson today. We are still under political and development system. The other day we looked at formation of KANU. We also looked at the first and second Lancaster's conference. We also looked at some of the issue of multi-party democracy. That is 1964. We also talked about additional of Section 2 of the Constitution, that is 1982, where Kenya was made a single-party democracy with only one political party operating, that is KANU. Then in 1991, now we had the removal of Section 2 of the Constitution, where Section 2A was removed to make Kenya a multi-party democracy. And we talked about some members who pressurized for this, like Raila Odinga, Martha Karua. It also other members like Mohamed Bahamaris, then the other members like that. So we want to look at what you call single-party democracy in Kenya. So today we shall look at single-party democracy in Kenya. Now, single-party, single means one. When you talk about the word single, it means one. So that's what you call single. So single-party democracy, it means only one political party is allowed to operate in a democratic republic or a state. So that's what we want to look at in Kenya. Now, single-party democracy was practiced in Kenya in 1964. Because we said in 1964, KANU or KADU and the APP dissolved to join KANU. But remember, the constitution was not amended. So the first multi-party democracy, we are saying it was practiced in 1964 when KADU and the APP was dissolved to join KANU. That is during Kenya becoming a republic. Then coalition government. A coalition is where the parties agree to work together. Two or more parties come together to work together. That is what we call a coalition. So they form what we call a coalition government. Now we want to look at when was this coalition government formed. So we have said coalition, two or more parties, they agree to work together. That's what we call a coalition. Then condition for forming a coalition. We have some conditions we need to follow when we are forming a coalition government. Number one, if each party does not win, they draw. I mean, they get the same votes in the representation in the National Assembly. So, for example, in Kenya, we have 290 members of parliament. Now, if it happened now that we have 145 each party, let us say Jubilee got 145 votes or representation in the National Assembly, then the same NASA also get the same representation in the National Assembly, then it means no one has won this. So it leads to formation of a coalition government because no one has won. So that's what we call draw in election. Then number two, when we want to form a coalition government, what do we need? If the parties agree to work together. For example, we remember in 2007, the ODM and the PNU, that is Raila Amolo Odinga and Mwai Kibaki, they agreed to work together, then to work as a coalition government. Raila became the prime minister and so on. So when the party agrees to work together, that's also is a requirement when we want to form a coalition. E.g., we are talking about 2007, we had PNU and ODM. So that it is. Then this coalition, it came through what we call coalition. It was formed in 28th January 2008. After 2007 election, it was called National Accord and Reconciliation Act 208. So this one was enacted in the Constitution. This was a situation where, you remember 2007, we went for general election for presidential election. Then Kibaki won. But after winning, the opponent or opposition party leader, that is Mr. Raila Amolo Odinga, claimed that it was irregularity in election. So they had to go to form a coalition government. This one was chaired by the person called Kofi Annan, who was the chief mediator in that day. So in 2007, there was a mediator, Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, that is from Ghana, who chaired this meeting, and he led to an agreement between Raila and Amolo. So we call it the National Accord Reconciliation Act in 2007. So the agreement was like this. There was a position of Prime Minister now was created in the government, where Raila Amolo Odinga became the Prime Minister. Then we had two deputy Prime Ministers. That was Uhuru Kenyatta. Then we had also Musalia Mudavadi. So they became the Deputy Prime Minister. Now, agreements during this reconciliation accord. Each member was to appoint Deputy Prime Minister from the National Assembly. So each member, that's Raila Amolo Odinga, and then also Mwai Kibaki, the two parties were to appoint two members who will form the position of the Deputy Prime Minister from the National Assembly. And that's what we are talking about, that now by then there were two Deputy Prime Minister, that was Uhuru Kenyatta and Musalia Mudavadi. So that was agreement number one. Number two, Prime Minister was to be the head of state departments. State departments, according to the new constitution, which was referred to as the ministries. Ministry was talking about the old constitution, but the new constitution, the ministry are called the head of the state departments. So state departments are ministries. Now, president was to be the head of state. Then the prime minister was to be the head of state of departments or ministries to control internal affairs of the country. Then prime minister will be a member of parliament, that is National Assembly or MP, and the leader of majority party or the largest party in the representation in the National Assembly. So it was also that the prime minister will be a member of parliament and the leader of majority party or the largest party in the representation in the National Assembly. So that one was also another agreement. Then, in the case of removal of a prime minister and the deputy prime minister, it was through what we call the vote of no confidence. So, allow me to wrap this. In the case there is removal of deputy prime minister or prime minister, it was done through what we call the vote of no confidence. So the vote of no confidence is also called impeachment. So impeachment is where election will be done in the National Assembly or the Parliament. Then 2/3 of the members will pass a motion to be against the deputy prime minister or minister. Then he can be removed from the seat. So it was not a matter of waking up, then you sack the prime minister or the deputy. It was through what you call the vote of no confidence through the parliament. So, and 2/3 of the members should support the motion to impeach the deputy prime minister. And then another one, removal of cabinet secretary or the CS or the minister was through consultation. What do we mean by that? The ministers were those, the one we call the CS. CS means cabinet secretary. So the removal of any cabinet secretary by then was through what we call consultation. Consultation means two parties could consult each other. The president, Mwai Kibaki, could consult with the Mzee Raila Amolo Odinga, who was the prime minister, in the case of removal of any CS from the government. So no one could wake up in the morning, then he sacks any cabinet secretary. So that is it. Then there was also sharing of ministries. Kibaki was to share the ministries with Raila, because this, we have said, this is a coalition government. The two parties are working together. So the ministries were to be shared among the two political parties or two parties of the coalition. Then the dissolution of the coalition was through writing or through the dissolution of the 10th parliament. I think this was the 10th parliament by then. So for that, what we call a coalition to come to an end, or we dissolve it, then it was through what we call writing. One member wanted to move away from the coalition, especially the prime minister or the deputy, was to write to the president some of the reason why he want to move out and he can go according to the constitution. Then number 2 was through the end of the 10th parliament or dissolution. We know very well after the end of one term, that is 5 years in the Kenya, there is dissolution of the parliament by the president. And I think that's what happened after the dissolution of the 10th parliament. Then the coalition came to an end. So that was also another term and the condition of the National Alliance and Accord Reconciliation. Then the National Accord Reconciliation Act, which is just the same, will be enacted in the Constitution. So this one was enacted. Remember, we are talking about the new Constitution that will come, the one we are using currently. It was not independent Constitution. Initially, we were using independent Constitution, which was drafted by some of the political leaders in early years of independence. But now, this one was to be enacted in the new Constitution, the one we are using it right now, which was promulgated in the year 2010. So it was National Accord Reconciliation Act was to be enacted in the new Constitution, which we are currently using right now from 2010. Then from there, the experts, we had a committee of experts on the Constitution review who were selected to carry out more research and also to carry out drafting of the new Constitution. Then this one was now enacted. So that one. And then after general election, after the formation, after the coalition or after the dissolution of the 10th parliament, the next general election, this is what happened. There was establishment of counties, which we are having right now. So we have 47 counties which was established under the new constitution, was among these after general election. Remember, initially we had what we call provinces or regions. So initially we had the provinces like Rift Valley, talk about Northeastern, talk about the Coast, talk about Western, Nyanza, and so on. Those were provinces during the old constitution. According to the new constitution, which was to be enacted in this, there was establishment of counties, which is currently here. And we say a county is a government on its own. It has its own president, who is the governor. And with the two arms of the government, that's executive, then we have what we call the county assembly. So the county also works just like a national assembly or the national government, where we have the president at the national level. Then the county, it has also its role. It has also the county assembly, which is also just a parliament for making bylaws in the county level. Then the same also, the president and deputy president was to be elected directly by the people. Now, president and deputy president was to be elected directly by the people. What do we mean? For example, when Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta was going to be elected as a president, he appointed William Samoei Ruto as his deputy. So when Uhuru won the election, then William Ruto became automatic the deputy president. That's what we mean. So this one also was established in the new constitution, that the president and deputy will be elected direct by the voters, registered voters. Then, and lastly also, not lastly, but CS or the cabinet secretary won, CS or the cabinet secretary should be a non-member of the National Assembly. Should be a non-member of the National Assembly. What do we mean? The cabinet secretaries, according to the constitution, they were supposed to be not members of parliament. That's what we mean. So people like Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the Minister for Internal Security, talk about Mutahi Kagwe, the Minister for Health in Kenya. They are not members of parliament. And that is what you're talking about here. That every individual who was to be appointed by the president as the cabinet secretary was not to be a member of parliament. Then another one which is also very important, there was establishment of what we call bicameral house. What do we mean by bicameral house? This is a type of parliament where we have two houses. So initially Kenya used to operate with the only National Assembly. But according to the new constitution, it was enacted that the government after general election will form what we call the two houses of the parliament. And when you look in Kenya, we have two houses of the parliament or legislature. So we have the Senate here, with the senators representing the counties. Then we have the National Assembly, which makes the law. So this parliament, or these houses of the parliament, so this type of the house we call the bicameral. Bicameral is a parliament which has two houses. So they work in close to one another to make sure the laws of the country are made and also amended according to the constitution. So now we want to look at the periods where we had single period. This is the time. We have years here. Then we have single party democracy in Kenya. We had also multipartyism where we had the multi-party democracy. Then we had the types of coalition government which were formed. Now, in 1963 to 1964, there was no single party democracy. There was no single party democracy. Then under multi-party democracy, many political parties, we had KANU, then APP, then we had KADU. They were operating. Then under coalition government, 1964, we said this one, under coalition government, APP, KADU joined to form KANU. KANU. They dissolved to join KANU. This one dissolved, then they joined KANU here. So we had a coalition government formed by APP joining KANU. Then in 1964, 1982, 1964, so we said there was single party democracy where the same with this one, KADU, APP dissolved to join KANU. The same year, that's 1964 to 1982. And then now the constitution allowed many political parties. So KANU was there, KADU was there, but only KANU was active. Because remember we have said this one, KADU and APP dissolved and then they joined this. So only KANU was active here. But all political parties were there. Remember the constitution was not amended here. And then lastly, here, there was nothing. No coalition government was formed. But remember 1982 we said there was addition of section 2 of the constitution by making Kenya a single party democracy. So 1982. Now 1982 to 1990, we are seeing that 1982 to 1990, the constitution was amended. Then section 2A of the constitution was added to make Kenya a single party democracy, only one party, and that was KANU. So KANU was operating here, 1982 to 1990. The constitution was amended, then we added section 2 of the constitution, then one political party became operating, that is KANU. Then we had also what we call multi-party democracy was not there. Then also coalition government was not there. Then we have 1991 to 202. 1991 to 202, sorry. 1991, then to 202. So we said 1991, the constitution was amended following the pressure of people like Raila Amolo Odinga, Gingo Odinga, and so on, Martha Karua, James Orengo. So the constitution, section 2A of the constitution was removed. So 1991, there was no single party democracy, but now we came to what we call multi-party democracy. So many political parties were formed, like TB, LTP, and so on. So that's what you're talking about. So many political parties were formed here to make Kenya multi-party democracy. So there were many political parties. And then here we had a coalition government under what we call the NAC. So some political parties came together to form NAC coalition, that is National Alliance Rainbow Coalition, led by Mzee Mwai Kibaki. So it was formed here. Then lastly, 2002 to around 2010, 2002 to 2010, there was no what we call single party democracy, but many political parties. So many parties were active, many parties. They were active here. And then lastly, here, 2002, 20, remember 2002, 2007, PNU of Mwai Kibaki. Then you had ODM of Raila Odinga. They joined to form a coalition, the one we have talked about in 2007. Then lastly, maybe to go back, just lastly, 1992, 1997 election were held also. Then Kanu won. 2002 also the parties joined to form a coalition, NAC coalition I've talked about. Then lastly, we had, it broke up in 2005 during the referendum. We had something like a banana, yes. Then we had orange, is where we established Orange Democratic Movement. So that is all about. So next we shall look at prominent leaders. Thank you.